record this for any students who need it. So hello, this is the Internships and Fellowships Abroad pre-departure orientation. So hopefully we'll give you some general information about what opportunities there are for you to advance your career internationally, as well as when you return back to Tulane. So welcome everyone. I'm letting the last few students in to our orientation, and we'll be taking attendance at the end. So make sure to stick around. If you have to leave early, please either send me a message in the chat or send me an email so that I know when you were able to stay until. All right, so internships and fellowships abroad. This is a growing field of interest for students, and we're happy to support you in pursuing your own internships or other fellowships beyond just a study abroad semester. But my name is Emma Brickhezo. I am a study abroad advisor from Memphis, Tennessee. My experience at Tulane, I did the Mandel-Pelagi program for Middle East Peace here at Tulane. So that's kind of the context I'm coming from. When I was an undergrad, I studied economics and linguistics. So that's kind of my interest. My fun fact, I am an avid kayaker. So a little bit about me. So some information for you guys. So we'll go over semester part-time and full-time summer internships that we know of through our office. We can talk about your experience being able to intern as part of a study abroad program, or some tips to find your own experience through your own channels. We'll be able to hear from a recent international intern, and I have some resources for you guys. Our peer advisor was not able to make it today, but if any of you have questions, Justin Reed, our peer advisor here in the office, recently interned in Amman, Jordan, and can tell you about his experience if you want to make an appointment with him. But we'll have a video from a student who has recently gone abroad to learn about that. You'll also learn a little bit about where to look for funding for internships and fellowships abroad, and also learn more about opportunities for work abroad after you graduate. So looking holistically, not just future study abroad semester, but beyond that as well. So if you're interested in interning abroad, what are the benefits for you? So a lot of them are similar to study abroad benefits. So it's going to encourage cross-cultural skills and sensitivity, provide specialized knowledge, access to different business sectors, nonprofit, governmental sectors in other countries. We really see that it does deepen your connection to your host community. It gets you outside of that student bubble a little bit. That tends to happen when you're studying abroad. It'll also introduce you to new ideas, processes, and work styles abroad. Also, for those of you studying a language, this might be an opportunity to do some language immersion. Not all internships require a language background, so it's likely there are going to be some English options wherever you're going, but you might consider this a way to grow your own language skills in a business context. Some other things, thinking about it from a networking standpoint, you can build an international network, be in a specialized environment. So the US may not always be the most ideal location for a certain career. So if you have long-term career goals that are better suited for somewhere overseas, you'll get to learn about that. But especially gaining increased independence, confidence, adaptability, and being able to look at your own career with an international perspective and start to explore what that might look like after you graduate. Now, there are also some drawbacks to common study abroad internship placement models. So keep in mind, wherever you're going, not all countries are going to have a traditional internship culture. So study abroad programs may be able to create internship placements where there may not have been any prior, but I encourage you guys to think about, how does this contribute to a colonial study abroad experience? What is your day-to-day going to look like? Is it going to be a good career move for you, or is it busy work? These kinds of things you should start to consider as you're looking into these opportunities. There are also full-time summer internships that are an option through a lot of these study abroad companies. So if you're doing one this summer or thinking about one for next year, I encourage you to research local organizations before going abroad, and there might be specific positions or locations that you might be interested in. This way you'll have more control over where you go and what you do. And if you're able to find your own placement, you don't have to necessarily pay for internship fees. Now, the big caveat here, Going through a study abroad program is going to be the easiest way to intern abroad because you'll be on a student visa. Otherwise, there might be visa implications for a traditional internship. So just something to consider. Generally, you can't get paid for an internship without being on a work visa. So just kind of putting that up front there. Often these international internships are going to be unpaid or more volunteer type work, but are still really valuable, and I encourage you guys to pursue them. All right, so some more questions to consider before accepting an internship. So consider some of these questions, and hopefully this will help you think about, what your goals are for your own study abroad experience, whether it's this go around or in the future. So how do you want to spend your time while you're abroad? What is the work culture like at whatever organization or in this country? What do you know about them and what they do? If you don't like the work that your internship organization does, whether it's a startup or a government organization, you're not going to like the work that you do. Also think about, what are you bringing to the internship opportunity? Of course, you're bringing tuition dollars. It's a great support for these local economies, but what are your skills that you're bringing in? Having a better idea of what those things are, whether it's proficiency in English, if they need translation or communications, whether it's a technical background, so maybe you're really good with data, whatever those things are, being able to actually articulate those in an interview is really going to help you get a better placement and a better match. So I encourage you to start thinking about these things. What perspectives or experiences do you bring that could benefit an organization that you want to work with abroad? And lastly, does the internship placement create an authentic partnership between you and your host country? So I just encourage you guys, for your own sanity and your own professional development, to really think about, who you're applying to, what kind of work you're going to be doing. It's going to make your experience a lot more meaningful if you're able to really be able to articulate these in an interview. So just some things to think about. So now that you've been kind of primed for this, how do you find an international internship? So many of our programs offer internships that you can add on to a semester program. So a semester part-time internship, the good thing about this, the costs of an internship would typically be covered by your tuition fees. So it would be in place of one of the classes that you take during your semester abroad. You would have an internship course and then intern about 10 hours a week. 10 to 20 is usually the maximum time you can intern. The other thing, many of our partners offer summer internships abroad in a variety of industries, but these are going to have room and board fees as well as tuition fee. So just make sure if you're thinking about a summer internship, know that there might be costs associated with this. You might also consider researching specific organizations abroad and their available positions. So just the same as in the US, when you're looking for an internship, just change the location. See if there are other options for you that you could do. Just keep in mind, there may be visa implications if you're trying to accept a paid internship. I don't know much about work visas, but if you find an organization you really want to work with and they work with internationals, typically they'll have some idea of what that process looks like. Keep in mind though, most internships are going to be unpaid. So, all right. Then my meme here, I'll take a sec. Okay, so kind of a general process for finding your own internship. You want to decide where you want to study abroad, search online for part-time internships in the area. Keep in mind that remote internships are more and more common, and they often work well with student schedules. So maybe you want to work with a US company and be abroad over the summer, or vice versa. Often that is an option with remote internships. So you might want to look into that if you aren't looking for kind of the office culture introduction. You might also want to look for businesses and organizations that are in your host country that relate to your own learning and career interests. Even if you can't create a formal internship placement, often they have volunteer opportunities and ways to get involved that are maybe a little bit more low stakes if you just want to learn a little bit and shadow. If you are going to do an internship on your own, I encourage you to research what the visa implications would be. So you would start with the consulate website of wherever your consulate is. So for New Orleans, typically the closest consulate is in Houston, but it's going to depend on what countries you guys are going to. My last piece of advice is to seek out organizations that are locally led and address specific problems. So I encourage you guys to avoid organizations that seem to exist exclusively to provide placements to foreigners. Your experience is not going to be as rich and not going to be as localized, and you're not going to feel as good about the work you do. And ask yourself whose interests are driving your experience. So with all of these things, we want you guys to take advantage of these opportunities, but have a healthy dose of caution and cynicism as you're going in, just to make sure that you're not going to be in a harmful relationship with your boss, so in your organization, or with the country that you're going to. So just some advice there. Now I know some of you have been asking about how to get academic credit for international internships. So if your internship is part of your study abroad program, the good news is your credit's coming back. So if you're going through a Tulane official study abroad program, you are going to be able to get credit for that internship. If you want to get specific major credit for your internship, you would generally need to get the syllabus approved by your major department chair. But that we can work on as well if you do want to try to get that credit. If your internship is not part of your study abroad program, you'll likely have to work with your department specifically to enroll in an internship course for credit. So you can reach out to a study abroad advisor to explore your options, or you can visit our website. So this is the page for international internship opportunities. We kind of have a flowchart more or less based on what type of internship you're doing. Just so you guys know, not all internships are going to offer academic credit. This isn't necessarily a deal breaker for you to take that experience. They're still extremely valuable on a resume and are really going to set you apart from other students when you're applying to jobs. So I encourage you, get that academic credit when you can, but know that that's not the only purpose or goal of an internship. So try not to get too worried about that piece. Another way that you can design your own service learning project would be to take the Global Cultural Awareness course, which is taught by Annie Gibson, our Director of Study Abroad. So what this is, it's a 3-credit course broken up over 3 semesters. So 1 credit prior to studying abroad, which would be this semester, 1 credit while abroad, and 1 credit when you return. So you can choose to complete a public service requirement, such as a service learning internship through this course, and you're expected to do 40 hours of service. So you would work with our director to come up with your project, identify organizations to work with, and after you complete the final course, you would get the service learning credit. So this is also an option. If you're interested, you can reach out to Dr. Annie Gibson. And for more information. So Annie Gibson, really wonderful to work with and very eager to help you guys design your own service learning projects. So another way to do interning work. All right. So another thing to think about, if you're doing an internship abroad, there might be funding for it on campus. So our financial aid timeline, fall students should be hearing back quite soon about potential scholarships, keeping in mind that only about 5% of students are able to actually get funding through our office, but there might be other departments that you could reach out to. So NTC Academic Enrichment has grants for summer internships, as well as Newcomb Institute. They have funding for internships, but it must relate to gender somehow. You might also be able to reach out to your major department, or if you're in Stone Center, Africana Studies, or Asian Studies, they might have some funding you could apply for, reach out to them. And lastly, the Center for Academic Equity has a grant cycle for study abroad as well as internships over the summer. Those application cycles tend to be on the 15th of each month, and there might be more in the future. So for future experiences, consider those as your as funding options. So, all right. So I'll just give you some examples of study abroad programs that we know of that have internship options. So if a lot of you guys might be studying abroad through CIEE, they have internships in many parts of Europe, as well as in the Middle East and Africa and Asia. So kind of wherever you want to go, there's probably an option for you. A lot of these you can add on to an existing semester abroad or do a standalone full-time internship over the summer. So CIEE, another big one that we work with is IES. So IES abroad has internship placements in many parts of Europe, Middle East, Pacific, Latin America. So full-time internships are an option over the summer and then part-time in the semester. CET has some in Asia and Europe, as well as IFSA has a summer long-standing relationship in Shanghai. So all of these are an option for you. If you're part of one of these programs, you might want to reach out to your admissions counselor or pre-departure advisor to see if an internship would be an option for you. But like I said, full-time summer internships are also an option after you study abroad. So if you can't get enough and think, you know, I really do want to think seriously about working in this country in the future, it is an option to go back. Right. And then another one we work with is CEA or CAPA. So Barcelona and Florence both have semester internship options that you could do, as well as some are available worldwide. So just some to think about. If you're part of a different study abroad program, I encourage you to reach out to see if they have options for internship placements. Often these study abroad programs are able to kind of leverage their relationships in the city to get you placed. So generally though, the application process through your program will be an interview just like you would for an internship in the US. So nothing is guaranteed, of course, and you want to make sure it's a good fit for you. So you're not wasting your time doing an internship that's totally unrelated to what you want to do. But there might be a way on an existing program that you're doing to be able to find organizations to work with. All right, so a couple things I'd like to highlight for you. I'll be sending out these slides for you guys to review later on, and you can use any of these links, but one that I just like to highlight. So we have a student stories blog here where you can read from our previous students who've gone abroad and written about it. So one of our students did an internship on their program in Gaborone. So definitely options kind of all over the world. Like I said, our peer advisor who's in the office this semester studied abroad in Amman, Jordan, and was able to do an internship at a non-governmental organization. So definitely the world is your oyster, you know, whatever you want to do, there's probably a way to make it work. If not this semester, definitely in the future. But we can go through real quickly. So this student, hopefully you guys are able to hear this. Please let me know if you aren't. But this is just one student's experience doing an internship in Berlin. So giving you guys an idea of what that looks like.
I just think anytime you can take opportunities to get experience, to learn from different people, learn from different cultures, it really just enhances how you see the world. My name is Zachary Smith. I attend the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. This is my final semester. I reached out to CIEE and they were very transparent. They were very welcoming of questions, and I immediately felt comfortable making the decision to come here.
We work with a lot of startups in Berlin, and it's really a great place for our students to grow and blossom while they're in Berlin doing their internship. It's a great place for them to work with young people, people who are not too much older than themselves, who've come to Berlin with an idea and they founded a business, and it's a great thing for them to see.
My internship is with Plan A, an organization that's fully fledged in the fight against climate change. For me, it is very personal. It is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so what I get to do every day is find similar people who we can work with in this fight. It's a lot of work, but I love being a part of the team at Plan A. Berlin is one of those cities where I would feel completely comfortable within a couple weeks of transplanting my life here. There's so many people to meet within the program or the city itself. There's so many things to learn about the city, about yourself. So really just make the most of every opportunity. It's going to be hard at times, but most of the time it's going to be the greatest adventure you've been on.
All right.
These are the top 10 places to study abroad for college.
Perfect. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys get a sense of what a semester abroad internship would look like. It's going to look different, obviously, depending on where you're going. But hopefully that gives you a sense of, often working with startups or smaller organizations that need some help that a student intern can provide. So thinking about it from that perspective, and I'll restart my share in just 1 second. Start up again. All right, and like I said, so I have some other resources for you guys that I encourage you to check out, especially our student stories blog to hear from our students who have gone abroad. Resume. Okay, perfect. So that's kind of our general information about internships. And I can stay after if you guys have other questions, but generally thinking about kind of bigger picture after study abroad, if you come back and you're hungry for more opportunities, the good news is you can work abroad or do different fellowships abroad after you graduate. So we're going to talk now about some fellowship opportunities, graduate school, teach abroad, other working abroad opportunities that you can pursue. And we can help you figure out what is best for you. So just some general information, in case you guys don't know, the Office of Fellowship Advising is a really great resource for you. There are lots of fully funded opportunities on their website. So this Fellowship Advising International Opportunities, Jennifer Beers and Thomas Spencer, it's their full-time job to help you guys get these opportunities. So things like the Rhodes Scholarship, Fulbright, Peace Corps, Teach Abroad, any of these things, they can help you review applications, figure out what opportunities are an option for you, and they're available for appointments as well. So they're both really lovely, and like I said, it's their whole job to help you get these competitive fellowships and scholarships. And Tulane students actually do pretty well as far as placement rates go. So for instance, for Fulbright, I believe last year our placement rate was 30%, which is much higher than the national average. So about a third of all the Tulane students who applied for Fulbright were actually awarded something. So like I said, they're really good at what they do, and they're your ally here for these competitive fellowships. So these slides were provided by their office. So the Fulbright student program is a quite popular way to teach, research, or work abroad after graduation. Like I said, 32% of our applicants were actually awarded grants. So your odds are pretty good, and definitely work with the Fellowships Advising Office on that. Some other ones you might want to consider. So if you're interested in doing grad school or research in the UK or Ireland, the Rhodes, Marshall, and Mitchell scholarships can help you pursue graduate study there. If you're interested in studying Asian studies or are interested in China, there's another program at Peking University that you can apply for that provides fully funded scholarships for something like that. If you're interested in German, the DAAD exchange will give you a full scholarship for a master's degree program or other postgraduate degree. Additionally, Princeton University has campuses in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So you can be placed as an English teacher abroad or with their relationships with non-governmental organizations. So definitely lots of opportunities to look for. And these are just some that you might want to consider. Like I said, meet with the Fellowship Advising Office for details on that. Another one that you guys might be thinking about is Peace Corps. So this is run by the US government, so is intended for US citizens, but this is a multifaceted organization. The good news is Bill Bridgeford is our local recruiter for the Louisiana region. I've met with him before. He's very willing to work with you on your application and help you kind of get where you want to go. Peace Corps is a really great opportunity to have support in working abroad and getting that international experience. Another option is English teaching. So teaching English abroad, whether through a specific organization. So some governments run programs, like in Japan, there's a government-led JET program that will connect you to schools and help you become an English teacher abroad. There's also some private companies you could work with. A lot of study abroad companies also have kind of English teaching certifications that you can get, and that'll streamline you into a career doing that. Most are paid and will pay for your housing and a stipend at least. Some things to consider. If you are interested in this, apply early because these really competitive programs have early deadlines. The smaller ones usually go through the spring. Some require a teaching English certification, so make sure to know the requirements. Generally though, if you are paying for teaching English abroad, you're getting scammed unless it's paying for a certification in English teaching. So be wary of these things. If you are paying for it, be cautious about committing to a program like that. All right, other options. This is a little bit more, I guess, more rustic perhaps. So woofing is a really cool opportunity to be able to work on organic farms in exchange for room and board. So this can be a short-term opportunity or a really long, stay for a year type deal. There's lots of countries you can look for. They're often more rural, but this is going to give you a really good opportunity to live with locals, learn about local cultures, farming, sustainability, and it's a really great way to get abroad. Similarly, another aspect that you can do is to work in a study abroad office. So study abroad programs. So when you go abroad, you might really connect with the program staff. They might have job openings that open up later on that you as an alumni would be able to apply for. You might be able to lead a trip or support staff or advising for a study abroad program. Typically, your contracts would be for a semester, a summer, or a full academic year. So these are a little bit longer of a commitment. And often offer language immersion, community service, cultural exchange, and other travel opportunities. You can also work in the United States with study abroad, so doing a job like I do as a study abroad advisor. If you really love your experience and want to help other students do it, many universities are hiring for those kinds of positions as well. So these kinds of experiences that you're going to have studying abroad, I encourage you to leverage them. There's many ways that you can get to do work abroad. That's not just physically being abroad, but may offer you travel opportunities as well. And then the last option that you might want to consider is grad school. So sometimes the best location to study a certain subject is abroad. So maybe you're a scholar of James Joyce. You want to be in Dublin at the James Joyce Library studying this author. Maybe it's cheaper than in the US. So especially in Europe or in Asia, even Africa, honestly, most of the world, the grad school market is a lot cheaper than in the US. You might need to consider additional fees such as airfare, visas, or higher living expenses, but often the tuition part is going to be much, much cheaper if you are interested in doing graduate school abroad. You want to pay attention to the standards, so what their admissions requirements are, and if there's certain logistics, so you might need to contact a professor before applying, these kinds of things. But I encourage you guys to think about, what your longer goals are for grad school. There might be a way to do that abroad as well. Some options you might want to consider. So English-speaking countries are quite common that have English taught university programs. So the big ones, UK, Ireland, Australia, Canada, Barbados, Belize, New Zealand, Singapore, etc., are going to have English taught university cultures. There's also American schools abroad. So places like American University in Paris, Franklin University in Switzerland, Temple University in Rome. These kinds of universities are going to be American-style universities taught in English, but situated in another country. And there's also US schools that have campuses. So one example, Tulane has a campus in Ecuador in the Tierra program. NYU has a campus in Florence. And I guess I mentioned this earlier, but Temple has campuses in Japan and in Rome. So those two are an option. And lastly, there might be specialized master's programs. So in Europe, for instance, Erasmus is their kind of government-sponsored study abroad program. And Erasmus Mundus joint master's programs are in a variety of fields, and they're run by EU schools. So there might be scholarships you can apply for. Generally, each program is going to be a little bit different, but often there are scholarships that can cover things like tuition, living stipends, etc. And even so, even if you don't get scholarships, often it is still cheaper than going to the grad school in the US. So some things to consider. And like I said, I'll be sending out these slides if you want to do a deep dive and really think about what your goals are. You can also revisit this later if you want to meet with me and talk about it further. And lastly, you'll get all of these, but these are some search engines you might want to use if you're interested in an abroad experience. So some of these are more for kind of travel companies. Some are more teaching oriented, other kinds of things. So obviously your mileage is going to vary based on what you're interested in, but there's lots of different search engines where you can look for work, fellowships, grad schools, all those kinds of things. And just to, in summary, just things to think about as you're considering working abroad, interning abroad, longer term things. You want to make sure that your passport is up to date and is not going to expire until long after your time abroad. 6 months is the minimum though, that it would have to be good. Consider if you are going to do a work experience, intern or volunteer experience, think about what the work culture differences are going to be between the US and your host country. You might be able to reach out to program staff, or I always encourage looking for student blogs from that program. What is intern culture like in Japan? And then you can get more information. So that's a good way to start. Think about what your funds are going to look like in banking ahead of time. How are you going to get to an internship? So are you going to need a car, a transportation pass, a bike? How are you going to get around? And lastly, I encourage you to utilize the resources that you have at Tulane. So career advising is always an option by our career advisors at Tulane. They're really lovely. I'm a big fan of their office. Success advising as well. If you're worried about balancing work and school life, success coaches are a really good resource to help you figure out what that balance is for you while being abroad. There's a lot of competing factors there, so we don't want you to get overwhelmed. And lastly, we have a diplomat in residence, J. Nathan Bland. He's actually our diplomat in residence, works with the UN. So if you're interested in a career in diplomacy, we also have a resident diplomat who you can talk to about that kind of thing. So, thinking about what your goals are, there might be a way for you to do an internship on your existing program. We can also think longer term and career goals. And you have lots of support here at Tulane to figure out what that's going to look like for you. All right, if you have questions, you can contact me. I'm Emma Brick-Hazo. Like I said, our peer advisor, Justin Reed, jreed11 at tulane.edu, can answer questions about his particular internship. He's a Tulane student, did it quite recently. So what that looks like for him. And then our last page is the attendance. So please scan this and fill out the brief survey to make sure that you are marked as attended. And I'll be on for questions afterward. But just make sure you do this before you leave. We'll be good there.
Do you think you could send the link because I'm on my phone, so I don't have like a QR code?
I can try. Let's see. Right. And we'll text it to myself. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to scan this code. I'll try to send it out as well in the chat. Hopefully this works. For those of you who are wanting to go to a couple more sessions, we have also a Living Like a Local session this evening if you're interested. So I encourage you to attend to get your final second orientation session if you need it. We'll have one more this afternoon. And if we have any more, we'll definitely be sharing that information with you guys. Hopefully that helps. And let me pause my share real quick so I can put that in the chat. For you guys. Right. Okay, so putting this in. For everybody in the meeting, if you weren't able to access that QR code, hopefully that works. And I'll share the QR code one more time for those of you who need it. Share that. So for anybody who needs it, here is the attendance one more time. You can either scan the code or use the link in the chat. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hopefully this was helpful. If you have other questions, I'm happy to stay on the line. I have a few minutes after this that we can discuss whatever your specific questions are. Let me see. Just
Thank
taking-
you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Not seeing specific questions, but here if anybody has them. Right. Give it a couple more minutes if you want to stay on.